Okay, so we're ready for our next chapter, and we know that Amy Ann went to the board meeting to tell them why they shouldn't ban her favorite book, and she didn't speak up, and they did actually keep them banned. So that's where we were last, and now let's kind of see what happened. So this chapter is Mixed Up Mrs. Frankfurter. In the car on the way home, I pulled the piece of paper out of my pocket and unfolded it. At the top, I had written, Why, from the Mixed Up Files of Miss Basil E. Frankwiller, is my favorite book. What I had written below that wasn't long, but it had taken me a long time to do it. How do you say why you like a thing? You can point to all the good parts that you like, how they ran away from home to a museum, that you like how Claudia packed her clothes in her empty violin case, that they slept in big antique beds and took baths in a fountain, that they solve a mystery about an old statue. I like all that stuff from the Mixed Up Files, but none of those is really the reason I've read it 13 times and still want to read it again. That's something bigger, deeper, more than all those things added together. How do you explain to someone else why a thing matters to you if it doesn't matter to them? How can you put into words how a book slips inside of you and becomes part of who you are so much that your life feels empty without it? Is that your speech? Dad asked. Why didn't you read it? Dang it, Amy Ann. I thought that was the whole reason we came all the way out here tonight. The whole reason we rearranged everybody's schedules. Your mother and I have a lot better things to do with our time. Hot tears poured down my cheeks, and I turned away so Dad couldn't see. I tried to swallow a quiet sob, but Dad heard me. Are you crying? Oh, Amy Ann, dang it, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. I know how hard it is for you to speak up. He pulled a bright red bandana out of his pocket and handed it to me. Here, what's the book? I shook my head. I couldn't look at him. I was still crying. Come on, Mixed Up Miss Frankfurter or something? He was trying to get me to laugh, but I was too upset. He was right. Everybody had changed their plans for me, and we'd come all the way downtown on a school night, and I sat there too afraid to say something. Dad didn't say anything else, but a few minutes later, we pulled into the parking lot of the bookstore. I hadn't even noticed we were driving home. We weren't driving home. Come on, Dad said. Clean yourself up now, and let's see if they have your book. Inside, I told the lady at the register the name of the book, and she knew it right away. A few minutes later, Dad bought me my very own copy of From the Mixed Up Files of Miss Basil E. Frankweiler. Here you go, Dad said. Now it doesn't matter whether they have a copy in the library or not. You've got one of your own. On the way home, I held the book in both hands in my lap. The cover was a little different from the one in the library, and the Newbery medal on the front wasn't real like the library one. It was just a picture of the medal, not a sticker you could run your fingers over and feel the bumps, even through the clear plastic cover. But that didn't matter really. The book and the pictures inside were the same. I was glad to have my own copy, but I couldn't help thinking about the book that wasn't on the library shelves anymore, and how I would never have known from the Mixed Up Files of Miss Basil E. Frankweller was my favorite book if I hadn't found it there in the first place. The Girl with the Mullet. Sometimes I like to pretend I'm the main character in a book. My mom and dad and sisters and Rebecca are all characters too, and Miss Jones maybe, and Mr. Vaughn, my teacher, and the other kids in my class. But I'm the main character. I'm the one who explains everything that's happening in my own voice. The one things happen to. The only problem is the best books aren't the one where stuff just happens to the main character. The best books are the ones where the main character does something like run away to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And that's why I could never really be a main character in a book. I never do anything. I stuck my bookmark in from the Mixed Up Files right at the point where Claudia and James collect $2.87 in coins from the restaurant fountain in the museum and watched out the window of the bus and took as it took me to school. I had already read all the way through my new copy of From the Mixed Up Files once already before I went to bed. We stopped at Rebecca's house and she flopped down the seat next to me. How was the school board meeting? She asked. I shrugged. You would have liked it. They made a motion in a second. That's a lot. Robert's Rules of Order, Rebecca said. That's what they're called. It was written by Robert somebody or other. No kidding, I thought, but I didn't say so. Did you read the thing you wrote? Rebecca asked. I looked out the window. No. Amy Ann, you worked all week on that. I shrugged. Miss Jones talked right, though. What happened? Nothing. All the books are still banned. Rebecca saw the book in my hand. Isn't that one of them? Yeah, my dad bought it for me. Rebecca took the book from me and looked at the cover. You're all the time talking about what a great book this is. What's so bad about it? Nothing, I told her. That lady says it teaches kids to lie and steal and cheat, but they don't do any of that stuff. Only now that I thought about it, they do lie about running away to the museum. And Jamie does cheat at cards, and I guess you could call it stealing when they take the coins from the fountain. Well, they kind of do, I guess, I said. Rebecca's eyes lit up. Cool, can I read it? I was surprised. All the times I talked about from the mixed up files, Rebecca had never once been interested in reading until now. Okay, I said. I pulled my bookmark out and gave it to her. Only don't lose it. Rebecca looked pleased with herself. She started flipping through it to look at the pictures. I grabbed the book and closed it. Don't look ahead. You'll spoil it. Danny Purcell leaned over the back of the seat. Hey, are you guys talking about the books Trey's mom got banned? Rebecca blushed the way ladies do around my dad. She liked Danny, only she never said so. But sometimes when I was talking to her in class and I realized she wasn't listening, it was always because she was watching Danny. I didn't get it. Danny was nice, and he was good at sports and gym class, but all he really seemed to care about was his hair. He had a big football helmet of hair that he wore down to his eyes like the frosting on a cupcake, and he was all the time combing it down with his fingers to make sure it was swirling the right way. I saw the list in the newspaper, Danny said. You read the newspaper, I thought, but I didn't say it. I read that list, Danny says, and I realized I know one of these books, like not from class. It took me a while, but then I remembered why. We owned one of them. It's on this bookshelf in my house. It's been there like forever. I perked up. Which one? Danny threw his head back to flick his hair into place. Something about waiting for a girl. I don't remember, but the cover has this girl with a mullet talking to a ghost. What's a mullet? I asked. That's when your hair is short in the front and the sides, but long in the back. Danny explained, the hair expert. Girls don't wear mullets, Rebecca said. Well, this one does. I tried to remember the other books on the list. Is it Wait Till Helen Comes? That's it. Mom says it was like her favorite book when she was a kid. Man, I hope she never had a mullet. That is not a good look. Wait Till Helen Comes was one of the books on the list I hadn't read. Can I borrow it? I asked. Rebecca and Danny both looked at me in surprise. Sure, yeah, Danny said. I'll bring it tomorrow. Rebecca looked lasers at me, like I was interested in Danny, too. I just want to read the book, I told her. I want to read it, too, she told Danny. I squinted at her. Did she really want to read it, or was she just saying that because of Danny? Danny shrugged. Okay, sure, I'll bring it tomorrow. You can read it after me, I told Rebecca. You've got from the mixed up files of Miss Basil E. Frankwaller to read first. Why do you guys care so much? Danny asked. Are these books really good or something? They have to be, Rebecca told him. Why else do you think they banned them? It took a few seconds, but the truth of that finally got through Danny's thick helmet of hair. He nodded. Yeah, I bet they're full of good stuff, like all those channels my parents block on the TV. You can borrow this one when I'm finished with it, Rebecca said, waving from the mixed up files under his nose. Now it was my turn to shoot lasers from my eyes. Who said she could loan out my books to other people? All right, cool, Danny says, and he sat back in a seat. I lifted my hands at Rebecca as if to say, what gives? But she just blushed again. Whatever. At least now I could be sure she would actually read it. The bus pulled up to the school and I hauled my backpack onto the aisle. That's when I saw who'd been sitting in front of us. Trey. He must have gotten on while I wasn't watching. How long had he been sitting there? Had he heard us talking about his mom and the banned books? Had he heard me loaning mine out and asking to borrow Danny's? Trey flipped a sketch pad closed, put it in his backpack, and slid out past me. He gave me a quick look as he went by, but didn't say a word. What was that supposed to mean? That he had heard us? Was he going to rat us out to his mom? Danny nudged me along and I followed, Trey off the bus. I was being stupid. So what if we were reading the books Trey mom had banned from the library? They weren't library books, they were our books. And nobody but my parents could tell me what books I couldn't read. Miss Jones had said so, which gave me an idea. Oh, I have a feeling something's about to happen here. So she's got an idea about these books. So we're gonna have to wait and see. But before we go on, think about what do you think might happen and why do you think it might happen? What do you know about Amy Ann? Can you kind of see her changing here a little bit? And what do you think her idea might be?